Hello all YouTubers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning back into this weather presentation and hurricane discussion for May 28th, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe because sadly, tons of my watch time has been coming from unsubscribed viewers. We are on our way to our next goal of 600 subscribers, and thank you guys so much, by the way, for 500 subscribers. Let's get to our next goal of 600 subscribers, alright? So please do subscribe, and also, this applies to every single one of you, please watch the whole video as well as liking and sharing the video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. Alright, so for today we're going to be talking about our next potential tropical cyclone. Before we get into all the models and everything, we have to analyze the way conditions are starting to come together now to see and to maybe see how the models, what they say based off the current observations that we do have. So let's look at the current observations and kind of seeing do we have factors that come together. Well, our first factor here is not just the ocean temperature. That will be just in a little bit, but this is the tropical cyclone heat potential, because those tropical cyclones they really kind of build off of heat. And you can see in those orange colors those 80 or actually 100 plus values here on the tchp scale, which is tropical cyclone heat potential, just for short. It is a pretty high on the scale in parts of the Caribbean, all right? And I'll be showing you how the setup and how the storm could potentially come together later on in the video as well. All right, so here is the ensemble-based probability. We're going to kind of go over the probabilities too of development, and this is the ensemble-based probability. All right, you got the NCEP, you got the CMC, the European, some commonly known models here. They are trying to form something else up there in the subtropics, but we're not really focusing. We're focusing more around Mexico and Central America that could be potentially drifting into the Gulf of Mexico. All right, and here's your development. We got some development chances here. There's a lot of spots where this thing could potentially develop. It could also develop out there in the Eastern Pacific. All right, this is about up to 5 days out. So from now through 5 days out, what are the probabilities? This is 5 to 10 days out. All right, and you can see how kind of it goes right over Central America and Mexico. All right, and you might be thinking, well, why is that? Well, we're going to be developing what's called a gyre, and it's basically just a big low pressure system that sits around. So it's what happens this time of year sometimes, and these gyres can start sitting there, and when they do, little what we call maybe low pressure systems will start spinning off of it. They kind of add some extra spin, and then they spin off into the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe they'll break off another piece of it will go into the Caribbean. But this one could break off of the gyre and maybe head this way toward the Gulf of the Caribbean. We're not quite sure, but we are sure that we could potentially see our next tropical cyclone. Obviously, if the conditions come together and if the models are correct from where they stand now, then we could have our next tropical cyclone, and that would be crystal ball. All right. I mean, I keep thinking of the crystal ball every time I hear that. But anyway, so this is just the NCEP ensemble-based. The other ones were CMC and European. All right, but here's your regions right here: Bay of Campeche here, parts of Southern Caribbean, but really high development chances they're saying for parts of the southern southwestern Gulf of Mexico, obviously the Bay of Campeche, as well as the parts of the Eastern Pacific. Essentially up past 100% chances of cyclone development there in the Eastern Pacific. So that's really interesting, and it could form. This storm could also form in the Eastern Pacific potentially, and then track into the Gulf or track into the Caribbean. And we're gonna have to see about that one. And is the final map out of these maps here. This is the 5 to 10 days out, same kind of map, and they do have a 100% chance of probability of development of a tropical cyclone, either moving across Mexico, moving across Central America, over from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so there is your development zone that we could potentially be seeing. All right, here is your Mjo Miles Forecast, and I want you to notice where these blues are. This is your gyre that's starting to develop here. And this is for today. All right, we go down to week 1. This is from May 29th to June 4th. You can see again there is your gyre region. So this one's going to kind of break off of that gyre and move to the north. And finally, this is June 5th to June 11th. You can see that gyre moves a little bit more farther to the south here. All right, so some storms could break off into the Caribbean. All right, but that's your little area. All right, that can really support that development. And if you look at the dry air, going back to the topic of do the conditions come together, we really have no dry air. All right, here's your region right there in the Eastern Pacific. Here's your gyre starting to come together over Mexico, over Central America. All right, but really the Gulf, the Caribbean, even the southeast coast, there was no dry air to be found. And besides off the coast of Africa, there's really no dry air at all. All right. Obviously, we do have a little low pressure system out there in the subtropics that behind it there's always going to be some dry air. All right, and you can see some of the African dust that's still coming off the coast of Africa. We got some Saharan dust. So that we're going to have to watch. But that probably will not get over all the way into the Gulf and the Caribbean by the time the storm system comes together. So what this is the Nino 3-4 index. I don't know, you can't really see it by the camera, but the value is 0.578 degrees below average. Think about that, almost 0.6 degrees below. That is right there in the La Nina category. And to think that just a month ago we were at 0.4 above, so like almost an El Nino. We dropped the El Nino to La Nina in the course of a month, 45 days. All right, so that is a pretty substantial drop. When we look at the ocean temperature anomalies, all right, the Gulf of Mexico is above average, so we got a check mark for that. Even the Caribbean, average towards the middle part, but outer rim of the Caribbean is above average, so Caribbean is also doing fairly well, as well as the southeast coast, north of the Caribbean. We're talking about parts of the western Atlantic there being above average as well. When we look at the ocean temperature, like the actual temperatures themselves, you see that like above 80, we're talking about almost 84 degrees Fahrenheit, obviously 29 degrees Celsius in parts of the Gulf of Mexico. Caribbean there as well. Very warm, well into the 80s. So this storm has a lot of room, all right, because pretty much the whole Gulf of Mexico, except for the northeastern corner, is at 80 degrees right now, or greater. We also have the Gulf Stream at 80 degrees plus. All right, so wherever the storm does form, and if it does form in track, I mean, it's going to be in 80-degree water for quite some time. All right, it's kind of hard to avoid that. All right, now let's get into some models. All right, so here's the GFS model. All right, this storm's going to take a while to get here. All right, I mean, we're still 5 days out at this point. There's your little gyre sitting there. You got a little low pressure starting to spin. I mean, it's just a huge area of just giant low pressure, and little low pressures can break off of it and potentially form a tropical cyclone. And there's your storm starting to come on shore. It's still sitting there. And they actually formed this one in the Pacific. And here's your little low pressure starting to break off right there. All right, and this is June 6th. We're at the first week of June at this point. All right, so this could potentially be far out. All right, and then the low pressure makes its way north in the Caribbean. Models have been showing this for quite some time. Some very heavy rain there for parts of Haiti, parts of Cuba, Dominican Republic. All right, and then it starts to move north towards potentially Miami. I have some very heavy rain, pressure below 1,000 millibars, and we still have that storm over there in the eastern Pacific as well. All right, so that's a GFS model. Obviously, this is now June 13th, so we're getting pretty far out in time, but the models have been very consistent with this. All right, let's look at the cyclonic vorticity signature. All right, and there you go. You got your storm over there in the Pacific. All right, but you also got your little Atlantic storm right there, and that could potentially drift up towards the north over the next, say, week and possibly up to 2 weeks out. All right, it seems to dissipate, but then we form another one that Gyre just forms another low pressure system. One dies, one just comes back to life. All right, and there it is. So this is the next tropical cyclone that we are going to be tracking. Let's take a look at the surface winds. Does the GFS really form a tropical storm? The answer to that would be yes. I mean, you can see it right here, clear as day. All right, there's your green. That's your tropical storm force winds. Obviously, we have more of a hurricane, Category 1, Category 2 hurricane on the Pacific side. All right, that's the Pacific side. That's a different ocean. Makes landfall in Mexico. So, and then the next low pressure that develops moves out towards Miami. And even though the pressure is about 997 millibars, the winds aren't going to really get above 39 miles an hour according to this model run. But earlier in the loop, you guys did see that right here, back here, we did form a tropical storm, a little area of green that was starting to grow in size. So if a tropical storm does form, it could be potentially pretty small in size. And smaller size tropical systems can form quicker if the conditions are right. They can also die quicker if the conditions are not right. Which is why, like I said before, some of those bigger storms can sort of build a shield around themselves. And if you guys haven't already, I would highly suggest you check out my 7th hurricane forecast right there on the top right of your screen. And my 8th one will be coming at the very beginning of June, probably June 1st or June 2nd. When we look at the precipitable water, all right, the moisture will just be sitting there and sitting there. All right, there's your low pressure breaking off. We have some very intense moisture values off to the east of the system. So, I mean, that's typical too. And look at the blues. That is even more intense. All right, those blues probably about 4 or 5 inches of precipitable water. So some very heavy rainfall rates coming out of this too, regardless of development. And then moving up towards the north. And it's kind of looking long term because these gyres can actually kick off these tropical systems early in the season. This is what's going to be happening. And we can see this repeat itself more than once. All right, but there it is to the eastern tropical system. Some very dark greens to some pretty intense moisture. Now, the only thing holding this back potentially is going to be the shear anomalies. That's the only thing holding us back. All right, and why do I say that? Well, the wind shear, it's already strong enough at this time of year, right? And if you want this to have a chance to form, you got to have some below average shear like we have up there in the southeast United States. Sadly, that's not going to be the case because we do have a blocking high, all right? So it's going to be a weak blocking high off to the north, all right? And that's going to keep the wind shear calm across the central and southeast United States, but it's going to start kicking up the shear. Actually, parts of the Gulf of Mexico, parts of the Caribbean, or actually pretty much all the Caribbean. All right, wind shear will be up like above 30 knots above average. All right, so wind shear is already strong enough this time of year. So if you're going to throw above average wind shear on the map, it's going to make it hard for this storm system to develop. However, June 13th, we start to see some weakening shear across the Caribbean. But according to the, according to the GFS model, the low pressure would already be up here by then anyway, where the shear already is. So we're going to have to see about that. All right, because the wind shear could be holding this thing back a little bit. We don't have dry air, which is good for development. We got warm ocean temperatures. We got a gyre forming over Mexico and Central America that could kick off that low pressure, these waves of low pressure. All right, but the wind shear, it's going to make it hard for this thing to develop. And we've had, Bertha and Arthur form regardless of some pretty intense wind shear because they had the Gulf Stream to help them, which is a very warm and calm current. Well, I mean, it's pretty strong current, but it's a very warm current that even at temperatures of 80, 81 degrees Fahrenheit, they can really kick up those tropical cyclones. So we're going to have to see because the wind shear is still 50 knots plus, all right, by this time. And this is June 6th. All right, wind shear is still kicking up very high for the north and west. All right, and we're going to and because, like I said, can this grow in size? Can that start to block out some of that wind shear and dry air if there is any? All right, but if not, that wind shear is going to cut right across. All right, so we're going to have to watch, all right, because the storm can go, you can grow up very strong. All right, the ingredients just have to come together just right. Maybe a little bit weaker shear, all right, like Friday, June 12th. And the previous map I showed you was a shear anomaly over a 5-day average. So, like, for example, this one is from June 8th to June 13th. Will it be above average shear all the time? No, but based on what they've gathered, overall, it will be above average shear. But it won't always be like that. Now here's the 500 millibar height anomalies I was telling you guys about, and here is your kind of like your blocking high, probably off this map, but it's up to the north there somewhere, and it's gonna kind of keep the storm, just staying there because the high goes all the way up there where this black line is. So this storm is just gonna, because it's kind of trapped here. So I mean, here's your low pressure wave, possibly another one here as well, and possibly one over there in the Bay of Campeche and in the western Gulf of Mexico. But you can see that if that high is trapped there and there's no other high pressure off to the east or to the west, or actually preferably to the east, they really move this thing north, then it's just gonna sit there, and it could get closer. So that high pressure could start to back away. That low will continue to move a little bit farther to the north, as you can see though. But that blocking high though, it's gonna try to remain, it's gonna try to stand strong. All right, there's your kind of like your blocking high. There's your elongated low pressure, and here's another low pressure off to the east too. That could be a subtropical storm development. We're gonna have to watch that one. But the one we're going to keep our eyes on is the one on the Mexico Central American gyre. We are now on the Canadian model, all right, and take a look at this. All right, they kicked the storm off pretty early, 5 days out. We've got a low city right there in Belize City, some very heavy rainfall off to the east of the storm system. This could potentially rack up. I mean, obviously in more updates I'll be giving you guys some rainfall totals, but this could rack up inches and inches of rain through Mexico here, and very large low pressure system too, so this could really help to block out the shear. This storm could go and really, I mean, you look at Hurricane Sandy, Category 1 at landfall in the coast of New Jersey. The storm was massive, like I'm talking about like hundreds of miles, like diameter. All right, I mean it was very massive. So this storm, these Category 1s, these tropical storms can potentially grow fairly large. All right, I mean you take a look at the rain. Literally the rain from the system is pretty much covering almost the entire Gulf of Mexico. All right, we got some bands on the west, on the Bay of Campeche and the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. We got some rain on the eastern side, on the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico. So this storm is fairly large. All right, it's not looking very compact. The isobars aren't very tightly packed, so not a too intense system, not too much of an intense system for now, as it looks like. They could very well change, but the rainfall hits very large here. Rainfall is just, I mean, the coverage is just very crazy. It's just crazy. All right, and if that rainfall coverage does stay like that, all right, we could be talking about Texas and Florida getting the rainfall from the same system. All right, so that's going to be very, very large. We're talking about hundreds of miles across. All right, so again, here's your storm on cyclonic vorticity signature. All right, central and western Gulf of Mexico, definitely some pretty strong stuff. And when you look at the surface winds. We do have some yellows. All right, so we're talking about 50 miles an hour. Not bad. All right, we do have definitely some tropical storm force winds on the northeastern side as the latest model runs. All right, even though the pressure does drop, though, the winds do start to weaken a little bit. All right, they could refire again. There's your little tropical storm winds on the east and southeast side of that storm system. But again, this low pressure is very large, covering almost the entire Gulf of Mexico here. Again, let's look at that precipitable water, because the moisture, you're going to be very impressed here with the moisture, because the moisture from the system could potentially get very high. All right, so again, here we go. All right, low pressure moves to the north, and there you go. Just take a look at this. Look at the blues that we have forming right to the northeast of the storm system. Look at the moisture coverage. You have deep green covers pretty much all of the Gulf of Mexico. All right, and these gyres, that's what happens. They sit there and they can spawn off other low pressure systems, and we could have a potentially big storm developing. Now let's look at the GEM model here, those shear anomalies, and you can see there's shear anomalies, more of the western Bay Campeche, western Gulf of Mexico, maybe some below average shear. All right, we're going to have to keep our eyes on that, because obviously if the shear is lower, we can have a storm developing. All right, here, let's go back to 5 days out, and you can see, watch as the storm grows in size, and notice how the wind shear around it not quite as strong. It's starting to build a barrier around that wind shear, so the wind shear is now all the way off to the east. All right, so something we got to keep our eyes on. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies real quick. All right, kind of skipping ahead to a week out. And again, that blocking high, for now, is going to keep the storm somewhat suppressed off to the south. At least help it to move slower. If it does move north, it'll help it to move slower. But that blocking high is going to try to keep it in the Gulf of Mexico. And that would be bad for a potential dangerous flood threat. So we're going to have to watch this. I will be keeping an eye on this, giving some updates. I do want to check the National Hurricane Center real quick, although I'm pretty doubtful that they put anything on here yet. Let's just make sure, because it happens to me before. At the end of a video, I mean, I'll just look at the NHC and they just put out an advisory. So, but Bertha there is 25 mile an hour sustained winds, 10-12 millibar pressure. So nothing on this storm yet, but we're going to have to keep our eyes on it. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'm the Weather Dude, signing off until next time. Catch you guys next video.